Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're at here on this fine Monday, 10:22 a.m. California time. January 13th, 2025 is the date. Latest activity shows a 5.1 here across the area of the southwest Indian Ridge, a fracture boundary out here. The latest quake on the globe. Early this morning, had a decent large earthquake out here near the Kumano Ridge. This area I've been watching quite closely. In fact, over the last, I think it was a few videos ago, I mentioned to keep an eye here specifically on this region because of all the deeper activity and the added strain that's being applied here against that plate boundary. This is also the area that got put a megaquake warning, issued a megaquake warning put on it for it was last year sometime by the Japanese government in terms of a large earthquake happening here soon. Something above, obviously, a 6.8. It's capable of producing to about a 9-pointer if this entire length right here fractures. And we'll take a look at the historical data here on that in a second. But 6.8 striking out here, about 5-6 hours ago or so. Pretty decent earthquake, second largest earthquake so far this year. Fairly shallow as well. It is, it had a little bit of aftershock sequences, 5.2, and there may be some other quakes in there as well, just not being listed here from the USGS. Looks like there's a number of low grade 4s and even some 3s in there. This 6.8 struck in a location that had a 7.1 last year. If you guys recall that 7.1 back in August, that earthquake and a sequence of aftershocks there is what triggered the Japanese government here to issue a megaquake warning for the Kumano Ridge. So that is obviously still under quite a bit of strain right now. It has not seen a release in pressure since 1944. And the average reoccurrence interval here, a return period is what they call it, is about 90 to 200 years. So there's certain segments and whatnot of the Kumano Ridge that can fracture, and most of the time they're pretty big earthquakes. And if we get a complete fracture of the entire length of the Nankai Trough, the Kumano Ridge area, then, we get potential up to a 9-pointer. This is just some of the fractures here. The dates, we'll go to a little bit more recent time period. Looks like section A and B here along the western area of the Nankai Trough, the Kumano Ridge area, had an 8.2 with 2 fractures being detected. And then previous to that, it looks like there was a 8.3. It seems as though these come in pairs in terms of fractures, and then followed up by another section of the subduction zone fracturing, similar to this right here, an 8.4 in 1361. 1 year before that, or a few months before that, there was a 7.8 with the C section here fracturing. Same goes for this area, 1498, and so on. But if we go back here to 1854, roughly one day prior, there was an 8.4. 1 day prior of the 1224 time period. And then, as you can see, they come in fractures. If you get one area of the subduction zone seeing a mega quake, it's almost certain or very likely that we'll see the other section rupture. That is, if we don't get the entirety out here of the Nankai Trough seeing a full rupture. That would be up to a 9-pointer. That's this area right here. And this earthquake activity is occurring down south here, and with really no release of pressure out here. We had a whole bunch of earthquake activity out here last year. Now we got a 6.8 in that same area. It's got to be under quite a bit of strain here for sure. And again, the last earthquake of decent size, there's the M7.9 1944 with 2 sections rupturing. And then 2 years later, so it looks like there's a time frame. It could be 1 day up to a couple years here where the other segment ruptures. 1946 and M8.0, but it doesn't look like it released its full potential out here, right? Because we could see easily up to an 8.4, 8.6. This here looks like this was a full rupture, but there is the potential here to build up strain for a 9-pointer, a 1707 earthquake. Goodness, 8.6 there. So we'll continue to watch that. Obviously, there is some concern of seeing that pop here soon. Definitely got to keep an eye on it. There's another deep earthquake. That was yesterday morning, 4.0. 6.2. Excuse me. Or 5.2, 6.2 miles deeper. Trail of earthquakes here in the deeper regions. That was adjusted yesterday with a little bit of shallow earthquake activity upstream here, with the most recent earthquake being only 6 miles deep, following a pair of deep earthquakes here. But in general, this whole area, it's under a lot of strain here. The area of interest is right about here, across the tip of this hand. The general direction of the plate motion puts the Philippine plate right here in the red, right in that region here. So when we get adjustment across the Philippine plate, that's putting quite a bit of strain out here in this area. If you think about it here, Taiwan last year, remember all those 5s and 6s out here across this area? We even, I think we had a 7-pointer out there as well. The year before. And really, and like I say, when all these areas light up out here and nothing's coming in here specifically into the sections of the Kumano Ridge or the Nankai Trough, it's building up steam. It has got to be getting close here to be capable of producing a large earthquake. 1944. A little distance there, obviously, in terms of time accumulation, but I think with all the recent activity out here, we need to keep a watchful eye on that because it's got movement all around it. The pressure's being applied out here. It's in that location of where all the strain is expected to build up following all this other earthquake activity, and it's sitting there waiting. Might be where we see our next 8-pointer out here. Who knows? Either way, that's interesting sequence of events. And you can call this an aftershock from the 7.1 back last year. Yeah, just to make things not complicated, but I think it's just a general view of the strain out here against the subduction zone. But it is definitely within that area of the 7.1 from last year. So we'll watch that area. It's got some potential. It's been showing movement all around it. Excuse me. I'm still a little sick here. I feel a little bit better today, but the coughing and the voice is still a little off. All right, let's see what else we have here. And by the way, that 6.8, it kind of triggered up a tsunami statement. Go over here and double check that real quick. This is all gone and clear now, but they did put out an informational statement this morning. No tsunami was reported or observed, but they always do have to put out some type of informational statement on it, whether there's going to be a tsunami or not from this large earthquake, and there wasn't. As far as anything being in event mode, well, I don't see anything out here across the Kumano Ridge. It looks pretty clear. Well-defined Nankai Trough, Kumano Ridge. There is one buoy up here in the Gulf of Alaska in event mode. Not for sure what it is. That could easily be... I don't see any type of water column height. If there is, it's very minimal, but who knows? That could be... A lot of times these things go into error mode. They stop working out there. All right, let's get back to earthquake activity here. Starting off on the west coast, or secondary here on the west coast. Northern California, pretty quiet out here. I'm not seeing anything showing up on the seismograph stations there for now across Northern California. Same for the Pacific Northwest. The Bay Area got one little lonesome earthquake here after midnight, 1.8. That follows that 3.7 that struck out here yesterday in the area. A little swarming going on here across the San Andreas Fault this morning near Pinnacles. That stirred up about 3 o'clock in the morning. If you look here, all these earthquakes coming in within minutes of each other. That means the plate is moving out here during that time period. But it looks like since 4 o'clock in the morning, it has halted in terms of the stress that is along the creeping section of the San Andreas Fault. So when this moves, it's a good idea to be on guard out here across the plate boundary. A little sequence of events out there. Nothing big, but when it moves like that, series of earthquakes in a short amount of time period, that's when things start to really kick up. And so far, we have yet to see anything major happening today. Garlock Fault shear zone, a couple smaller quakes. Southern California here got nothing above 2.5. Generally small microquake activity out here. Let's go check out, let's see the Yellowstone overview real quick, see if that 6.8 showed up out here. And it did, quite nicely. The 6.8 is going to be this right here. That is not Yellowstone showing a volcano or showing volcanic activity. It's not Yellowstone having an earthquake event or magma intrusion. That is simply the signature from the 6.8 thousands of miles away in Japan showing up on seismograph stations here in northwestern Wyoming at Yellowstone National Park. That's all that is. I do like to look at it on occasion because it's pretty neat to see these waves showing up that far away. Wind events out here. That's some wind showing up there on the seismograph stations across some of them. And just for verification purposes, I'll show you guys. I always like to point out what I'm saying. Otherwise, I'm just saying it. I'm just not completely well yet. So, certain areas out here, eastern area of the Yellowstone National Park, some wind gusts up to around 30 miles an hour. For the most part here, it looks like it's confined to a couple areas that might be exposed to the elements out here in terms of the seismograph stations themselves. They may be getting a little bit higher wind gusts at certain peaks and whatnot, but it is windy. I don't see any rain out there or snow. Maybe some light snow out there, it looks like. But aside from that, Yellowstone National Park, super volcano, is super quiet. Only 1, 2, 3, maybe 3 or 4 earthquakes here. A couple here as well. But those are super small earthquakes. I don't even think they're showing them here on the USGS map. I don't see anything here today. Although there are some very small ones. Those are probably in the low 0.3 range. Not 3 magnitude, but a 0.3, well below 1. Maybe around 0.5. But all right, see what else we got here across the area. Texas oil fields here getting hit. A little bit from yesterday and today. Nothing major going on out there for now. Let's take a look here at the earthquake 3D globe. Papua New Guinea region down here quite active with some, looks like a 5-pointer at least here in this area. Couple 5s it looks like this morning. Across the Banda Sea, another 5.1 here across the Guinea area, and another 5-pointer there from late last night. Things starting to kick up down here as well across the plate boundary. Not seeing a whole lot happening back over here across the Tonga Trench, although the latest quake in this area does show a 4.7, fairly deep here at 306 miles into that subduction zone. Things rocking and rolling a little bit down there across New Zealand with a bunch of 3s, but no big earthquake activity to note in that area for now. South America region, a couple 2s and 3s. That's typical on any given day, right? 5-pointer out in the Atlantic Ridge. looks like the central Atlantic ridge. Some further aftershock sequences there following that 7-pointer out there across Nepal. Far as large activity so far this year, I would say we're definitely kicking up a little bit in terms of 6-pointers. Let's see, what have we had so far this year? So far, that 7.3. Oh, well, that was last month here. Technically speaking, this year though, the 7.1 in the Tibet area here in Nepal is going to be the largest earthquake, followed up by the 6.8 today in Japan, and 6.2 in Mexico, 6.2 in El Salvador, 6.1 in Chile, 6.1 in the South Sandwich Trench. So that's a bunch of sixes so far, but got to remember, on any given year, folks, we could see up to, and even higher, this is just the average, about 136 pointers between 6.0 and 6.9 on any given year. We're still waiting on this. One could say that the 8-pointers don't come about like clockwork, and that is very correct. There has been times, historically back in the past where we've gone a few years without 8-pointers. So I guess we may just be in one of those time frames here. But either way, the 8-pointer is coming up. That's a fact. We can't push it off too much longer because our last one was back in 2021. So one would think here, without much time passing, that the 8-pointer, or maybe even, who knows, it could have a 9-pointer out here soon. Couple of different areas, obviously the Kumano Ridge as a whole, or the Nankai Trough out here. Upon full rupture, we could see a 9-pointer maybe across the Kamchatka. That's a big old subduction zone. Cascadia subduction zone out here upon a full rupture could easily produce a 9-pointer. Maybe the Hikurangi subduction zone, the Peru-Chile Trench. Yeah, anywhere is capable of producing an 8, 10, 9-pointer out here in the subduction zones. All right, let's take a look here, see if there's anything else that we're missing. There's 3.9, looks like, around the Java Trench. Pretty active out here, more so, if you look at the map here, more active across this area of the Pacific Plate and adjacent plates than, for example, here across the West Coast and the Middle America Trench and the South America. But eventually, this will come to a halt. We'll see areas backstream here start to build up strain once again. All right, quick glance here at space weather activity. See if my voice can handle the chat. Pretty quiet. Not a whole lot going on there in terms of flaring activity as listed here on the map. These guys still have a 10%. No need for that. There's really no need for a 10% chance out there of X-flare activity. Nowhere on the disk here is it capable of it. That's why I kind of added here on my my page the solar flare forecast. I'm going to be doing that independently when I look at the solar weather activity for the day, and I will adjust those accordingly. As the flare threat goes up, I will adjust the numbers and the color, red being the highest if there is a major threat for a flare, green when there's very minimal. So just FYI, before I was going off whatever the solar ham site has, but a lot of times this has been old, and there's a 10% chance for X flare. I don't think so. I don't see it out there anywhere. M flare is pretty low at 40%. That's decent, but 10% on X flare, nah. And I'm pretty well knowledgeable in the space weather and astronomy in sense. I went to school with that, and I'm still in school for that, trying to get my master's degree in physical science. And speaking of that, man, spring semester is starting back up here soon, so I only got about a week of freedom before I'm got my head back into the books and whatnot. Should be fun though. I definitely enjoy the college classes here. All right, 3959. See what it looks like today. See, it's a massive area, but it's not very complex in terms of the magnetic instability. So really not too concerned with this area. It was looking promising, at least, from a little visual perspective. Yesterday, it looked massive. Obviously, it's a massive area, but it's not super complex. And when it's like that, really not expecting much. Maybe a sea flare or so, but that just doesn't look like anything. Clear-cut core here, indicating degrading of that sunspot. 3947 here. It's just about out of sight, out of mind. And there's another active area out here on the eastern limb. Really can't see all that much in terms of the complexity, so we'll have to wait for that. But right now, flare threat, as I mentioned, is pretty low. Not really expecting much out here from any of these sunspots that are currently facing the Earth. No major auroras in the forecast. We'll take a quick glance here at the next 5 close approach asteroids here to the planet. And, wow, everything's well out there in terms of mileage. A couple millions of miles away for all of these asteroids. 140-foot size asteroid. That's a big one. That's a big one. That would make a little interesting show if that were to impact the planet. But we're safe. Over 3 million miles away there for the closest approach. All right, quick glance here at Storm Prediction Center. Really no severe weather expected here over the next few days. We have a lot of cold air in place across the country. Minimal moisture down south there across the Gulf of Mexico. Well, we put this into motion here. We got another blast of cold air coming down from Canada. If you guys are tired of the cold air, well, it's coming. There's more of it coming. I wish I could say that was going to be for the West Coast, but we're not. We're stuck in a very odd pattern of West Coast ridging, and you get the troughing out here across the center portion of the country, bringing cold, bitter air down. And some of these temperatures here are, expected to be as cold as what they were here recently with that previous cold blast. 20 to maybe 30 degrees departure from average. Look at that. It's going to be bitter cold up here across the Dakotas area. It's wintertime. It's supposed to be cold, right? Not supposed to be 65 degrees here where I'm at. We haven't had a drop of... Well, I take that back. We've had just about 1/4 of an inch of rainfall so far this month in January for Northern California. I don't see that changing. It's super dry. The extended model range here looks... And this is towards the end of January. I hope it stays like this. Maybe we'll get a return to wet weather. But I don't see any major storm systems out here that would put a dent in the drought that we picked up here this month. January is our wettest month out here of the winter rainy season. And we, like I say, only had about 1/4 of an inch of rain in the Chico area where I'm at. Southern California hasn't seen anything in like 10 months. What's going on out here? Fire activity, real quick glance at the fire activity. I know we got some wind events stirring up over the next few days with some strong Santa Ana winds expected. Now, if you look, okay, this is, zoom in here a little bit. 14% containment for the fire, the Palisades fire. In terms of hot spots, I got them on, but I'm not seeing anything showing up here across the map in terms of hotspot activity. That could be a good sign. Even though, there's really no fire showing up here. That one's working, but it's offline. Let's check this one. I mean, there's the satellite-based hotspots there are pretty good at picking up fires that are burning. And right now, I don't see anything in there. That's good news. But with the wind stirring up, let's hope it stays that way. But containment-wise, it's going to take them a little while to build a whole perimeter line out there. And then they can call it contained. 14% containment with that fire. The other big one here, the Eaton fire. No visible hot spots out there either on this fire. And that's a good sign. Not seeing a whole lot of smoke out there in the sky. Check this one out. This one's observing this area, but it's pointed down on the ground. It's interesting. So I'm hoping that it stays that way. The Eaton fire, 33% containment, 14,000 acres here, but no visible hotspots showing up across that fire perimeter. That's good for now. Still a little offshore wind. Let's see what we got for current wind conditions down there. Zoom in to this area, windy map. There we go. Yeah, some decent winds out there. Offshore winds. The highest looks to be over here across the area, outside the Eaton fire, 48 mile per hour gust. And this is going to be an off and on thing here with lighter winds potentially towards the evening, then firing back up during the afternoon each day. But yeah, I'm glad to see that there's not any more, hot spots out there, but at least not anything that the satellite's picking up. I'm sure there's some little things burning out there which can easily turn into big things if we don't put them out. So, all right, let's see if there's anything else here, folks. Real quick glance. China Lake here. See those little spikes? Those are earthquakes showing up. Southern California, quite a few small ones down there. And this is another area that they fail to report the smaller quakes in. It's definitely got a little bit of earthquake activity there. Nothing showing up. Excuse me. So we'll see how it goes today. We'll just keep an eye on that. We definitely feel like we have enough strain built up out here for a bigger quake. And considering the last event was only 7.9 on this end, M8 over here, and these could easily be in the mid 8 range as the previous areas noted back in 1854. So it's very possible here that the events back in 1946, even though it ruptured, maybe it didn't completely rupture all the way. But I feel that's some place that we definitely need to watch here for some larger scale movement. We'll continue to keep an eye on that since we got all the newer activity just south here today. All right, folks, I'm out of here. Apologize for the sickness. I just, I could probably get on here and use a voice generated program to do the update, but I mean, really, how fun is that? You get on here and there's just a computer voice saying, explaining the earthquake activity. But I'm not going to go that route. I've done it before. I've been sick in the past quite a few times here for some reason. Something going on in the air. I don't know what it is. But I've made it through it, and I'm pushing through it. It's fine. Just a little crackly voice. If I have to, I will whisper, and I will be called the Earthquake Whisperer. Have a good one, folks. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening unless something major takes place here.